Dr. Mary, that was wonderful. I love your calmness. It just started me off into a calm place. And I thought, what a good experience to take this all in. So as I look at my notes here, I love your calm, connect, coach. I loved your emphasis on the importance of structure, how it can make such a difference in a child's life. I love what you talked about. Get yourself into a place of getting rid of these negative labels and turn them around so that they're a positive label, and each negative has that positive. The words that we use matter. So much to take away from this. My first question is, can you give us some examples? We know how teaching lifelong skills is so critical. So the words to use for my middle school child, for my getting into high school child. Tell me some words that I can put in my toolbox.
Well, again, it's going to depend on your child's temperament. So that's, we start there. So I think about the child who does have very strong emotions. They are temperamentally intense, and that intense reaction is wired into us. And we saw it when I changed our time, and that some people did have a very strong reaction. And so, words about you're passionate, you feel strongly about that. You have a strong sense of justice. I think, and at the same time, is that we also teach them that it's really important that you can learn to become aware of when you're starting to move into that red zone. What are the cues? You start to feel yourself tensing, your breathing rate rising, and to also then teach them strategies. What can you do to calm yourself? So it's that you're actually integrating all of them, of the coaching, the calming, the connecting, to use it well. And I do an experiment with kids where we build a volcano, and as we're building it and we're talking about emotions and giving examples, and it blows up, and I ask them, do you ever feel like that inside? And then I'll say to them, when you feel like that, what can you do, or what does your mom or your dad or your teacher do that helps you calm yourself? If they shrug their shoulders and say, I don't know, then they're a victim to their intensity. And so we have to help them understand it can be managed and used then and directed into the passion for whatever their interest is, whether it's cosmetology or the theater or the arts or sports, whatever it is. But to know and to understand themselves.
Beautiful. Dr. Schuler, I know you have a question.
I do. So I'm thinking about a lot about what you talked about with that sort of balance and leaning toward the positive, right? To kind of focus on temperament. So we talk a lot in the school district with our teachers about a 5-to-1 ratio, right? Like making sure that you've really leaned in a 5-to-1 ratio. Any kind of suggested practical strategies for doing that? Like, I get the concept, but as you're thinking from a parent or a teacher staff lens, just any suggestions on being like really intentional on doing that?
Well, I think one thing is, if there is a child that you struggle to, sometimes kids trigger us. Either, what they're very similar to us. So, we're in a highly high sensory stimulating situation, and this child is struggling, and we're sensitive too. So we're struggling, and the last thing we need is a kid who's losing it. um, is then also to connect with it, whether it's other teachers or with other parents, who see the strengths of your child, and say, tell me what you see in this situation. Give me the words that you use, that we can use our network and our support system to help us to see it. And I think also sometimes as an adult is to recognize, my sensitivity, if I use that example, it's an asset in that I notice the how other people are feeling, or I notice when the lighting is too bright that it actually hurts our eyes, or it's too noisy, and what's happening to my heart rate. And I think that's a really important thing to also, because sometimes we got shamed for being who we are. And so it's also think about, but now as an adult, how has this been an asset for us?
That's great. Thank you. Here's a question. Well, actually, the question is there a question that you get almost every single time you give this talk? And you go, there's that question again.
Well, I think one question is always, is being spirited an excuse for poor behavior? And I will just stress over and over, being spirited is a tool for understanding. It is not an excuse for poor behavior. That, if you're a high energy child, that doesn't mean you get to jump on everybody's couches or climb all over the furniture in someone else's home or in the classroom. But it helps you to understand you are high energy. So let's make sure that before you go to school, we get some outside exercise, or, before we go to a situation where you are going to need to be, less active, that we bring along a ball, or we give you a camera or a phone and allow you to be the photographer so you can move around, that we help them plan appropriate ways to express their energy and to move, but in ways that are respectful and appropriate for the setting.
Next question. When dealing with that older child, we're talking sometimes, you give us many, many examples all the way across the board. Anything particular that we should take away when we're dealing with that older child? And now, we've been exposed to this. We haven't had this opportunity to really start from the very beginning, which is why I'm so happy we do programs like this for families with younger children. But now I've been enlightened, and I'm going to, change that whole labeling to a positive one. Anything particularly of importance as I deal with my teenager?
So I think with the teenagers, and again, I want to stress it's never too late. We continue to learn through our entire lifetime. So if you didn't start this when they were little, it's not too late. Um, I think one of the most critical tools with our passionate, committed to their goals teenagers is working on problem solving skills. And so, one of the things that I always encourage parents, like the kids are coming, they'll be like, all my friends are going and I want to go to this. And instead of immediately saying no, even though you do not want them to go to this particular thing, is to stop and say, tell me more. What about this is important to you? And listening doesn't mean you agree or that you're going to do what they asked you to do, but you're letting them be heard. And when they feel heard, they will calm, and that you'll get them now in their higher brain functioning, able to work with you. And I think there's also an important thing with teenagers is when you do this, you'll also come up with situations where you realize your teen is feeling pressured to go. They actually don't want to do this. And when you see that, you can say to them, "Mm, do you need me to say no in this situation?" And they often won't agree, but you get that little smile, you get that kind of look. And so as the parent, you also say to them, if you go to this, you're going to be grounded for the next 30 days. So they have an excuse to go back to their peers and say, if I do that, my parents are just my parents are just so unreasonable. They're going to ground me forever if I go. And you give them the out. If
Mhm.
it's a potential yes, it's like, well, let's think of 3 ways we could do this. Like it's an overnight party, but your child's team that's relying on them has an 8 a.m. game. And you know, if they get no sleep, their performance is down, or they have an ACT test the next day. So it's like, well, let's think of 3 things we could do. What if you went until 10 and then I pick you up and you come home, or you drive home if they're driving? We help them look for solutions that both people can say, yes, this works for me.
The win-win. And I love what you reminded us about being curious. I keep hearing that more and more from our therapists these days to come in with, oh, I never thought about it that way. Those to elicit that information from them. So you're problem solving together. And I love that your reminder just now about no teaching can go on in that moment of meltdown. It's impossible. This is not the time to teach. Thank you for mentioning that. Dr. Schuler, I'm sending it back to you for a question as we get ready to close.
Um, yeah, Hilda, I don't know that I have any other specific questions. I think, again, I love a lot of the practical, I guess one kind of really like technical nuance piece. So I think you showed early on some like the importance of picture schedules sometimes to kind of help to set routines. And I know sometimes professionals have access to resources to create those. Any simple suggested tools for parents if they would like to kind of create simple picture schedules to kind of support directions that they're giving to their kiddos?
First of all, keep it simple. I am artistically challenged. I once was drawing with my niece, who at the time was 4, and someone walked by and said, "Oh, Joanna, what a great picture." It was mine. And Joanna's was much better than mine. So I actually let the kids draw them. If they're 2 or 3, I just draw out the squares and let them scribble. And then we label it so we know what it is. And I think for older kids, it maybe isn't the pictures, although if you have an older child who struggles to write, creating kind of a mind map using pictures of key concepts helps them to write an excellent essay. And I talk about that in the book. Um, but I think the bottom line is you literally could pull out a scrap of paper wherever you are and say, well, let's make a plan. Or do you want to know what to expect? Let's make a plan of what's going to happen this morning, or what's going to happen when we get there. Because surprises trigger. And so if we can avoid them, let's avoid them. I also want to stress in the schools is I talk about in this Raising Your Spirited Child how much sleep kids need. Parents do not recognize that, a kindergartner still often needs 12 hours of sleep, which means if they're waking at 6:30 in the morning, they need to be asleep at 6:30 at night. And for teenagers, working with them to bring that 3-hour gap between wake times on the weekend and during the week to reduce it. It's not going to be perfect, but let's bring it down from 3 hours to maybe an hour and a half, to working with them. But if we want to maximize performance and learning for kids, the first thing we have to look at is recognizing how much sleep they need.
And I would say that's another thing that just comes up more and more every single time we host a GPS, the importance of sleep. And I'm so glad you're talking about it. This last question, 2 parts. So uh, I have a child who is an athlete. They need to take that shower at the end of the day. But I don't think this is a good thing. So help me. How do I resolve this?
Okay. Um, I always say, well, let's experiment. um, and so it might be, working with, and obviously with an older child, they have to be part of the experiment. So, okay, you need a shower. Um, what's the water temperature? What's the length of the shower? So that would be, one of the first things. And then even when you take the shower, maybe using a night light in the bathroom instead of bright overhead. So we start dimming lights that cue the brain we're moving towards sleep. And then after the shower, again, what soothes and calms? Do we have a snack afterward? Maybe there is a little bit of reading if that calms, because some people reading does calm, some people the bath calms. The question is, are they calm or alert after? Sometimes it might be listening to some music or teaching them meditative practices and deep breathing practices that help them just to start soothing, calming their body so that they can fall asleep.
Oh, Dr. Mary, that's so great. The idea that we really have to experiment to see what works in our child's case. So this is the last question as we close, and what a wonderful hour you've given us today. My child pushes my buttons. How can I calm myself so I can be there to do the connection and then teach the skills? What can I do? Help me.
So sometimes it means we schedule some counseling to find out, what about this is triggering us. As a child, did we not feel listened to? Or, is there something about the tone of voice that is getting you? And if that's the case, then we can say to the child, I'm listening. I will work with you. Let's try that again. Say it this way. And you actively teach the child to change the tone of voice, change the words in a way that makes you want to listen.
Oh, lovely. I know you join me, Dr. Schuler, in a big hug of gratitude to you, Dr. Mary. A wonderful hour with so much good information, understanding temperament, how we need to start there, and we can really change everything in a family, can't we? Thank you.
We can.
Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for listening. Big applause to you.
Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for spending the hour with me.
Thanks everyone. See you next time.